Hey guys, this is Rick coming at you with Weed to No Basis, the podcast for all things cannabis business related. Are you an entrepreneur? Have something you wanted to create, something you wanted to bring to life in the cannabis industry? Maybe you've always wanted to partake in one of the biggest industries in modern day history. This is the podcast to listen to. Welcome to this panel. This is one of the first of its kind, to my knowledge, in the city of San Antonio, where we're having an open discussion around cannabis in our city, CBD, hemp, cannabis, and specifically the business around what's going on in the city. And it's explosive right now. So my name is Rick, and it's a privilege, honestly, it's a privilege and an honor to be moderating this panel at this what will be one of the biggest events in our city as we roll these out year after year. This is the first ever, the Essex Festival, and it's a really cool, it's a monumental day in the city, if I do say so myself. And I guess I just did, so. But anyway, my name is Rick, guys, and I'm the founder of Green Seed Cannabis Co. And what that is, simply put, is we're a cannabis incubator program. So we work with cannabis startups, whether you're in marijuana or CBD or hemp, and we have clients all over the U.S., and that's what we do. We're based here in San Antonio, Texas, and that blows a lot of people's minds. And your mind's going to be blown even more because as we introduce our panelists here, they're also based in San Antonio, Texas, and have thriving and soon to be thriving businesses. But I'm going to pass this mic down. It's an odd looking mic, so that's all right. We're in an odd industry right now, and so we just got to roll with it. So I'm going to pass this mic down, and what I want you guys to do is just give us an introduction, who you are, what your business is, and what can we expect. Like, now let's save the what can we expect in the future for later, but who you are, what's your business, and we'll just pass this down.
Hello, my name is Meredith Keller, and my partner Roxanne and I are bringing Sensi Magazine to San Antonio. Sensi started in 2016 in Denver, and we're currently in 8 markets. But by the end of the year, we should be in print in 25 markets here in the U.S. We are the leading cannabis-based publication in the country, and for the last couple of years, we've actually won the top award for being the leading cannabis-based publication. So we are currently launching the magazine, hoping our target date is September to be in print, and we are looking for partners and sponsors to come on board and help us bring and just explode this amazing industry here in San Antonio.
Hello, my name is Matt, and I'm the co-founder of Flora Fortitude, also the creative for Flora Fortitude. We launched about 8 months ago, and our focus has been to create community, sustainability, and overall healing for the use of cannabis in the state of Texas and nationally. What we have started with and some of the things that we have launched in the beginning are edible caramels that are infused with CBD, as well as a cold brew coffee right here that we have available. Yeah.
My name is Amos Lozano, and I'm the founder and CEO of Emjayze Hemp, where we specialize in pre-roll CBD joints. So our company is a little bit different than the typical CBD or hemp company that you may be familiar with. So we actually specialize in the smokable form of hemp and cannabis. But what we do is we actually use the familiar use of cannabis, which is a joint, to introduce people to the unfamiliar uses of cannabis, which is hemp paper, hemp plastic, and hemp apparel. All of our products are currently packaged in either hemp paper or hemp plastic. You can find us in a variety of stores in and around San Antonio, and every month we're expanding into new stores.
So where we're going with this, guys, is I appreciate the answers and a little bit about what they do. So now, what I want to ask you guys is, what was your experience? What industry or what did you do prior to this that led to getting into the things that you're doing now? And we'll start with Meredith.
Well, my background is in advertising and marketing. I've been in San Antonio over 25 years now, and I have worked on the ad agency side, and I've also worked on the media side selling. I worked for Kiss Radio for a couple of years. My partner Roxanne also comes from the media industry, so we're very knowledgeable about media, San Antonio, advertising and marketing in all forms. So we're super excited to bring this concept in the form of Sensi Magazine.
It's going to be so hard to follow up her speaking. My background does not come from cannabis whatsoever. Really just got into the use of CBD in cannabis 2 years ago, and it actually started by using CBD oil for our dog who has anxiety issues and is blind and has epileptic seizures. My background is actually nutrition and culinary driven. Some mostly informal training, but some formal. So that's kind of how we got started. My wife and I own a business that maybe some of you could be familiar with in San Antonio. We own Wildflower Caramel Company as well, which we started that just over 3 years ago. A little bit more short on our history. Rick and Lisa were regular attendees of our pop-up booth at the Pearl Farmers Market. And one day Rick came up and introduced himself, handed me his card and say, "Hey, have you ever thought about tossing some CBD in those caramels?" And I was like, the light bulb clicked. And I was like, oh my gosh, I could have a completely new market, reach a totally different group of people, and really get to do what my wife and I truly believe in, and that's holistic healing. And so the next day, I believe it was, I called Rick and said, "Hey, we need to meet. We need to get together. I want to talk about this and get this thing started." Literally, I think it was a matter of weeks, if a month, that we launched our brand, a whole new footprint. So yeah, I don't know. Did I answer that question correctly?
Yeah, no.
I just kind of got rolling, so.
Switch.
So my entrepreneurship background began, or I guess formally began with, I ran and started a juice company called Famous Juice Company, where we did raw cold pressed juice to fruit and vegetable juices. And that was an amazing learning experience. It was my first formal business where I was able to learn a lot of the formalities of entrepreneurship and business, develop my skills as an entrepreneur and networking. And towards the end of that, I started doing CBD infused juices, kind of similar story to Matt when I met Rick. Rick kind of brought it to my attention that, you know, I can get you some CBD to put in your juices, which was already kind of on my mind. I've been an avid cannabis user since I was a teenager, and I became really passionate about specifically industrial hemp when I was about 19 years old, when I started researching about the hows, the why, and who made cannabis illegal. Before that time in my life, I had actually never heard of hemp before, and I never really heard of the industrial uses. I had heard of some rumors and things like that. So I wanted to go and find out, why is cannabis illegal, truly? I hear the rumors and I hear different things, but I want to know for myself. And so through that research, I discovered hemp and all of its uses, and that's when I realized that cannabis is not illegal because marijuana is a dangerous drug, but it's illegal because industrial hemp is such a useful plant that it could replace a lot of petroleum-based products, cotton-based products, and even wood-based products, timber. And so it was actually 7 years ago when I decided one day I'm going to start a hemp company, and I have no idea what the product is going to be or what exactly we're going to do, but one day I'll start a hemp company. I'm going to call it Emjayze. And over the years that kind of developed, and kind of put that idea on the shelf for a while I was developing as a person, kind of figuring out what I wanted to do, and then went through my juice venture and developed my entrepreneurial skills. Then there just came a time when I said, you know what, I think it's time to start working on this. And it was about 3 years ago. Started working on the branding, started networking in the industry, and kind of narrowing down where I was going to start with this journey of teaching people about industrial hemp and teaching that cannabis is more than just THC products, more than just CBD products, but it's also sustainable packaging, sustainable plastic, sustainable apparel, sustainable building material, and so much more. And so that's a little bit about my background and how I got to where I am now.
Nice. Appreciate that. As you guys are hopefully hearing and seeing, there's a lot of diversity. Like literally on this panel right now, there's diversity. There's I'm going to touch on this in a second, but even to the extent of time in the industry. And again, I'm going to touch on this. This wasn't on our pre-Q&A, but we have somebody who's been in this, or Amos said about 3 years. Matt said about 8 months, and Meredith, they're about to launch 3 weeks. So take note of that, folks, that it doesn't matter whether you grew up around this or this is something that is a phenomenon you recognize, but the diversity, it's apparent, and it's alive, and it's well. And I'm going to point back to, we're sitting here in downtown San Antonio having a really, really nice conversation about what is unarguably, one of the largest, fastest moving growth industries in modern history, if not history itself. But something I want to touch on is, and again, because I know you guys and I really want the community, the city, and the folks here to really know you, is your backgrounds. And what I mean by that is, for instance, Amos, I just met your parkour pup. And Matt, I've met his wife. And he's got 2 kids, and I'll let him talk about what's going on in his family. And Meredith, we've talked. You have kind of a montage of all of that. You have a pup farm at home. Yeah. Those are my words. And you also have a family background. Tell us a little bit about that, a little bit more about you, and how those values are impacting your foray, your jump into the cannabis industry.
Well, yeah, I have 2 kids. I have an 11-year-old daughter and a 14-year-old son, and I have a kennel at home. The kids and I foster and rescue for San Antonio Pets Alive, and I'm down to 5 dogs. Just a couple months ago, I was up to 7, but they've been moved around and we've lost a few. I have actually used CBD on my dogs. In fact, I've got an old lady who's not going to be with us much longer, but we're keeping her comfortable. You know, we all got to go sometime. She's had a great life. She's 16 years old. So I believe in the healing properties of CBD cannabis. My son actually had brain surgery when he was 18 months old to cure seizures. And if surgery had not worked, I was moving to Colorado because at that time that was the only hope we had. I was reading about how cannabis was curing seizures, and I knew my son was not going to make it without something drastic. Luckily, thank God, we found the perfect doctor in Houston, and his seizures were stopped, and he's fine now. But we did know that we were going to have to deal with ADHD. They told us that when he was 5. And I hate the medication that the doctors have put him on over the years. So right now, we are going to be starting him on some CBD. I finally found someone who's an expert in where to start the dosage for this, so I can finally get my son off of these horrible meds that the pharmaceutical companies are making millions and millions of dollars from. And I'd much rather give him something natural that's going to just take that edge off the brain that's moving too fast, that doesn't allow the poor guy to focus. So I'm excited about what the future is going to hold. Like I said, my background is in advertising and marketing. I was born and raised in Southern California and went to Pepperdine University. And while I was living in Paris, my parents got a wild hair up their rear end and decided to move to Texas. So when I got home, I wasn't even over jet lag, and they were packing the house to move to Texas. So I said, okay, I guess I'm coming with you. So over the last 25 years, I've done several things in my life. I'm one of these people that will just try anything, as my partner Roxanne knows. I mean, I called her up one day, I said, hey, we've got an opportunity. I don't know anything about it, but it sounds amazing. Let's do this. And she was smart enough to say, yes, let's do it. So we are now launching what's going to be the premier education source for the cannabis industry here in San Antonio. So I am that crazy friend that everybody has, that when you say, let's go do this, I will drag you out the door to go do it. I love to travel. I love food. I'm also a food writer on the side. So if you can cook for me, I'll be your best friend. And I just love life.
I feel like I talked a little bit about my background, but I do want to make a point very clear before I forget to, that my wife is the culinary artist behind pretty much everything that we do. I do mostly all the business things. So just in case she watches this at some point, I want to point out that she's the real artist behind all the tasteful things that you guys will try at some point. My background actually comes from the creative industry. I got my start after some time in college, actually in the music industry, an audio engineering industry. Had nothing to do with CBD or cannabis, and I quickly learned that I wanted to kind of be independent, not have a boss, so to speak. I bet we all can relate to that to some degree. We like managing ourselves and kind of being free. And so I had always had this thought in the back of my mind that someday I'm going to start some company and we're going to get married and we're going to do this together. And we had no idea at the time what it would be. My wife went to school for psychology with no intention to be a chef or a culinary artist in any way, shape, or form. A lot of our background has come from the culinary industry or nutrition industry. And my mother-in-law had a great deal of influence, not only on my life through the years dating my wife, but also on my wife. Growing up in her home, my mother-in-law is a registered nutritionist and very, very knowledgeable in holistic methods of healing. And so all through college and even after college, I worked for Whole Foods and worked in the vitamin and supplement department. So I have a good deal of knowledge just about those areas and healing naturally through foods and things of that nature. We have 2 kids and one in the oven that is due in July. And a lot of people might ask, so how do you do it? How do you do it with a growing family? How do you do it with 3 kids that are under 7 years old? And we just do. There's not a great answer that I can give anyone, or a rhyme or reason or how to or anything like that. It's just that we have a passion for what we do. We have a love for what we do. We have a love for people. We have a love for educating. We have a passion for food, and just healing, community, sustainability. All of those things are a part of what we do, and a very, very big part of what we do. And that is a little bit, but I'd love to talk even more about that with you guys, because seriously, that is something that we are really, really passionate about.
A little bit about my background, I guess more into my personal life. I'm a vegan athlete, so I've been plant-based for going on 5 years now, and I competed on American Ninja Warrior in 2017. Some of you guys probably saw me doing a handstand over here, getting prepared. That's my way of grounding myself before I do anything, because that's where I feel most comfortable. So growing up, I've always been the kid that was climbing all over things. My mom's in the back over here, so I was always freaking her out, climbing on things. Like you could probably find me as a kid, and even still on top of this stuff, like I'm very tempted to climb and swing on these things here. So for me, I've always been just an athlete. I played football for 10 years, and I've been a tumbler since I was 5 years old, and tumbling is basically just flips. And I did cheerleading for a year when I was 13. So always been a little bit different than the conventional, I guess, the other athletes. I've always been a little bit of a different athlete. And then I don't know if you guys have heard of or know about what parkour is. I do practice parkour. I've been doing that for about 5 years, as well alongside the Ninja Warrior. But with parkour, there comes some risks, right? And so there's a parallel. I really enjoy parkour because of the parallels of the risk-taking that's very similar to like entrepreneurship. When you jump into a business, it's a risk you're taking. It's a relatively, most people would say it's more risky than the traditional paths that most people take in life. And the thing is about parkour and entrepreneurship is, I think on the outside looking in, it seems very, very risky. And it is. However, to give you the analogy to parkour, you'll see people jumping roofs and doing all these crazy things, but they're very calculated risks. And there's plans on how, if you fall short or if you overshoot or if something goes wrong, there's always a contingency plan on what you're gonna do or a way to get out of it. And so with that, parkour is a very safe sport. There's actually not a lot of injuries in the sport because that's a big part of the practice, is planning for the unplanned failures and having a plan on, if something goes wrong, I can roll out of this, or I can quickly grab on and do a cat hang here, whatever it may be. And it's the same in business. It seems very risky, but you're always creating contingency plans on if things could go wrong, what could go wrong, and if they do go wrong in this way, what are our options and what can we do? And so I really love those parallels, and I think it's played a big role in molding me as an entrepreneur. My background in parkour, tumbling, doing all the different stunts and things I do, and oftentimes, I even make videos on my Instagram. I'll be faced with a move or a combination of moves in parkour where I know I can do it deep down, but there's that fear that's kind of holding it back. And in parkour, we call it breaking the jump. And you just got to go. And you got to get out of the paralysis of analysis and just jump into it. And I find myself in similar feeling situations in the entrepreneurship world. And so it's a very interesting parallel that I really love, and I like to explain to people because a lot of people don't see that parallel. My entrepreneurship began very, very young. I actually just wrote a LinkedIn article about my entrepreneurship journey. You can go check it out. But basically, it's all started when I was 10 years old. I did a project where they taught us how to calculate a profit. And from that day forward, I was always looking for ways that I could make a profit, whether that was cutting yards or washing cars, or my dad would bring home donuts from the bakery at HEB, and I would go out, instead of eating them, I would go out in the street and sell them to my friends on the street. Or I'd go door to door selling handmade Easter eggs. I almost got suspended in middle school because I was making homemade little bow and arrows out of pins, and middle school kids, they love to shoot and throw things at each other, so that exploded. That was an exploding business for about a week until I I got called into the principal's office, and she had a stack of files with my product taped to it, and she said, you're making homemade weapons, right? And I said, no, I didn't think that. I thought I was making a business here. But she basically just banned me from bringing those anymore. But basically, the entrepreneurship has been very rooted in me as a kid. The risk-taking has been very rooted in me, and just being independent and I guess just kind of an original, I guess you could say. I've always been very different than the other kids. So that's a little bit about me. There's a lot more to the story, though.
Nice, I love it. And in case y'all can't tell, I'm an avid note taker. I take a ton of notes. Things just emerge that we don't expect, and it's just my contention that if we don't capture them in the moment, they're gone forever. Kind of like taking a picture, you get to live the memory twice. So some of the things that really stood out, Amos, were some of the words you used. But before I point to that, is Matt, I'm gonna ask that you make a request to Ellen, because your baby's gonna be born in July. Select July 27th. That's a really good day, July 27th. So, but that's a great day. It's a great day. Use the words different and risky. And that didn't go unnoticed by me, because being an entrepreneur in any industry, you have to be a little different. Just a little bit, not weird different, but I like to say that we have a DNA strand, an extra DNA strand that allows us to take those calculated risks, so to speak. And not everybody has it, and that's okay. But it's true. We're all different. We're all different. But you also said risky, and life is risky. Like everything is risky. And I love the analogy that Amos pointed out, is that it's also calculated. And that's something that I really want to stress, because while we have this crowd here, this video will live on. And for anybody who listens to this, if you're interested in the cannabis startup world, it's risky, and you're going to be different. But without that calculated risk, in other words, mitigating the risk, understanding what you're doing and why you're doing it, is as I believe why these folks up here that's why they're up here, frankly speaking, because they understand it. They grasp those concepts, and they're not charging blindly into the business of cannabis. But that leads me to another question, because as I'm sitting up here, I'm realizing there's stereotypes, and I'm a minority, like literal. I'm Hispanic. I don't have any Cherokee or French in me, and like pure Mexican. And my wife's here, and she's from Iowa. But I'm pointing this out because regardless of race or color or whatever it is, the minority that we represent is being a minority in a misunderstood industry, being a minority in the entrepreneurship world. So I'm curious. Answer this as best as you see fit based on what I've just said. How do you combat the stereotypes that exist around the industry, the cannabis industry, as a cannabis business owner, whether it's from a male viewpoint, female viewpoint, startup, whatever that is? How do you combat the stereotypes that exist around the folks, the industry in general?
Well, I was driving over here, and I was talking to my dad on the phone, and I was telling him that I was coming to do this panel, and he goes, "You're going to that pot panel, right?" And I had to try to explain to him, no, Dad, Roxanne and I are launching our business, and yes, it is a part of the cannabis industry, but it's not all about pot. There's so much more to it. So I try to combat the stereotype by just educating people and encouraging and challenging others to go educate themselves. Go find out, what is CBD? What's the difference between CBD and hemp? Ask around. You'd be amazed at how many people are using CBD right now for health benefits because nothing else is working, because it's not found in nature, so it's foreign to our bodies. So try something different. Go educate yourself. And honestly, my give a crap broke a couple years ago, so we're going to do this, and we're going to do it big, and I am so excited to be surrounded by amazing people that believe in this as well. So I just challenge people to educate themselves instead of just remaining ignorant.
Yeah, I think more than likely all of our answers are going to be pretty similar. We have just met, but I've known Rick and Amos for some time now. Like we mentioned earlier, knowing these guys and discussions and talks that we've had before, it's a lot about education and giving people the tools and the knowledge that it's not all about getting high. It's about taking care of our bodies and taking care of the earth. And that's something that stands out about our company, Flora Fortitude, but also something else that that I personally focus on a lot. And once you guys have the opportunity to see a little bit more about our business, is I'm like super creative, not in the way that you'll notice the rest of this weekend with like painting things and drawing things and stuff like that. Our branding and design and approach is very different than most cannabis companies out there. And in most cases, you'll see a lot of green and green crosses and all things of that nature and that type, which is completely fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That is a recognizable thing in the cannabis industry, and we understand that. Our approach is different. We come from a more classical, more earthy type feel, and we personally feel like that we don't have to have the flashiness of like the multi-colors, the bright colors and the green crosses and the pot leaves and things like that to describe what we are. We want people to be attracted in an instant to the brand and then come up close and see, oh my gosh, that is like, I wouldn't have thought that that's a cannabis brand or a CBD brand, but that is some really badass branding and a really badass product. And like, I wouldn't have known from 10 feet back, but now walking up on it, that's really cool. And so our approach is a little bit different. We like to think that we stand out in that way, and our hope is to maybe encourage other people in this industry that it doesn't have to look or be a certain thing or look a certain way, that you can be your own creative self and be in this industry.
So I guess to sum up, I could sum it up in one word, how we deal with the stigma, and it's head on. So I was smoking a joint here because in my belief, and I think most people can agree here, there's nothing immoral about cannabis. And with this particular product, it's also not illegal here. And so for us, that's really what it's about, is not shying away at all from the lifestyle, not hiding anything, and actually being proud of who we are and what we do. Coming from the cannabis community, I guess you could call it the black market community, because of the way the laws have been up until recently. There is a culture, there is a community, even though it hasn't been in the spotlight. And I think it's important for us to end the stigma by bringing that culture into society and into the spotlight and letting people know that there are people that live this way and it's okay. And so I would say head on is how we do it. You know, we obviously have a smoking product, so people are smoking out in public, and that's really what it's about, because then people are attracted, like, what are you doing? You know, why you're smoking a joint right now? And then that opens up a conversation for us to educate people. And obviously, from a distance, like I get judged often. You know, I've got long hair, I'm a young guy, and I often get judged until the conversation gets open, and then they see the way that I speak and they see the knowledge on the plant, and then they leave that conversation far more educated on cannabis than they ever have in their life. And more often than not, it changes their opinion about the plant because they didn't know about the non-psychoactive uses. They didn't know about the sustainable industrial uses. So we attack it head on, which is a big reason why our name is Emjayze. You know, it's a play on words. It's not just like Mary Jane's. It's a little play on words. I don't know if you guys have probably seen it before, but that is also another way we attack it head on, you know, because the name pretty clearly you're able to tell, like, all right, this probably has something to do with cannabis or weed or something. And from there we can educate people about the rest. So to sum it all up, we attack it head on.
Love it. I really love the honesty and the realness and rawness. And as y'all can tell, there's no right and there's no wrong answer. In fact, the industry, as you all know, it's just so nascent and so new, and I think it was even touched on, it's emerging from the black market into white market prominence, that there is no wrong or right answer. And one of the things I really appreciate, guys, is if you haven't noticed, is the branding. If you look across this panel right here, you're going to see there's a sense of pride with the t-shirts, with the bottle of coffee, with Amos lighting a hemp joint on stage, and there's no fear, there's no shame. This is right. So, but I love the diversity of the answers because there is no right or wrong answer. It's just an answer. And somewhere in the middle here, likely sooner than later, we're going to land on those answers. And but one of the things we're doing, guys, is we went into the micro. So you got to know what they do. You got to know why they do it. You got to know a little bit about them. Ellen is going to be delivering a baby this summer on my birthday, and July 20, and we're talking about, now we're going to go back out, steadily back out to the macro and bigger picture. So one of the things that I want to touch on, and this will be an interesting question, I think, because everybody is at a different stage in their business development and growth. What are the biggest challenges that you have faced, whether it's through the quote-unquote or hashtag stigma, whether it's through marketing, whether it's through your merchant processing, whether it's through your website? What are some of the biggest challenges, or what is the biggest challenge that you have faced to date? How did you navigate through it? And yeah, what's the biggest challenge?
I think the biggest challenge right now is people's uncertainty about how they'll be viewed or judged if they support a cannabis-based business, because the education, it hasn't been there yet, especially here in Texas, because we're a little behind the curve of some of the other states. So as we meet with potential sponsors and potential advertisers, it takes a little bit to get them a little more comfortable with what we're going to do. That we're not just going to be a weed magazine, we're not High Times, we're going to be the educational go-to source for San Antonio. And we're going to be the first one in Texas. It's not Houston, it's not Dallas, and it's not Austin. It's going to be San Antonio. And when we put it in that perspective, they tend to calm down a little bit and listen and open up their minds, because when their minds aren't open, because you go in and they're just closed, but once you explain it that way, it's like you can be a part of something big. You can be an entrepreneur with us. You can be that sponsor that is leading the industry instead of trailing behind. For example, we met with one of the large beer distributors yesterday, and we've met with everyone from vape shops to the big beer distributors, and so those meetings go very differently. And yesterday when we were in front of the suits at the beer company, they're like, how would we fit in? What would we do? And he's like, you have all these brands. You know, our magazine is going to reach a more affluent, intelligent crowd. And you have the opportunity to take these brands that you have a hard time getting out to the public, and you can introduce them in a way that is a little more edgy, a little more progressive than what you normally have in advertising and media. Because the people that are going to be reading Sensi Magazine are going to be more progressive. They're going to be more open-minded. So take that angle and let's look at marketing in a different way, a less, not so traditional. Because everybody's doing things the same way nowadays. We're going to do things a little bit differently because people are getting more educated and people are getting a lot more savvy with what's coming as far as this market and how it's exploding.
One of our biggest challenges to date, like I mentioned earlier, we've only been doing this about 8 months, but exploding like very, very fast at an unexpected rate, to be frankly honest, is figuring out how to expand our manufacturing. And we're very, let's see, how can I say this the right way? We are not a company that will ever outsource labor for the products that we make. We'll be more inclined to bring people in to our team and into our network, but we will never not have some type of hand in the products that we formulate and make, because we believe that our products can be diluted and mishandled and things like that. And in this industry, you have to be super careful with the people that you bring in. And if you're outsourcing and not there watching and I hate to use this word, but controlling in the most kind type of way, you're at risk to having a diluted product or a product that just can represent your name in a very bad way. And so we've been having to deal with the challenges of growth. We have been having some great conversations with people in the recent months about how to overcome those challenges, and we are overcoming those. And for us, it looks like bringing on partnerships, and a partnership that would support our vision, our goals. And so for us, we're raising funds so that we are able to do and grow how expansive that we are, but do it all in-house, keep it all here in San Antonio, and still have all that small batch handmade feel, that connection with people that they love, and the most important part, have that consistency, because that's one of the biggest things that I feel like is a challenge in this industry, and not putting diluted products out there.
Some of the challenges that we faced are, at this point, they're pretty common. They're pretty typical in the industry. You know, we've had bank accounts shut down, we've had merchant processors shut down, we've had our Instagram account shut down twice now, and at this point, these are all things that are almost expected because of the industry we're in and because of the timing that we're in. And it's something that if you ask almost anybody in the CBD, hemp, or cannabis world, they've probably experienced it, or they've at least experienced trouble getting those things open. And that's part of what comes with it. And, you know, in other industries, you know, they freak out if their merchant processor gets shut down, and we're just like, all right, what's the next option here? And it goes back to kind of that planning and having those contingency plans, knowing the type of industry we're in. Now, specifically to us and our brand, one thing that is pretty challenging is getting people to value the other uses of the plant. So the hemp plastic and the hemp paper, for instance, that we use for our packaging, a lot of times most people get it. You'll see it kind of click, and you can see their their value for the product and for the packaging. You can see that they understand it. But then there's a group of people that are just like, all right, hemp plastic, like, so what? What's this joint about? You know, and so getting people to shift what they care about the plant, which most people is very tied to the flower or concentrates or CBD infused products or just infused products in general, and getting them to start to understand and see what cannabis could do for us on the industrial side when it comes to plastics, paper, and textiles. The uses are enormous, and a lot of people just don't understand or know the extent to which the plant could help our economy and our environment. And then we've shared similar struggles like Matt, you know, because of the industry, because of the location, and because of the timing. This industry in this area is exploding at a crazy pace that none of us could really anticipate. So we're faced with scaling our operations, scaling our manufacturing faster than we may have planned. And that comes with its own challenges, you know, learning how to scale an operation that quickly. comes with a bunch of different things, that we can get into that, and that'd be a whole another hour discussion. But those are the biggest challenges that we're facing, and I think as an industry we all face.
Love it. I really appreciate that, guys. And you're right, Amos. There's likely this could be an hour-long discussion, because the challenge is, it seems like when we think we may have figured out where all the threats are coming from, if a business owner is doing a SWOT analysis in this industry, these sometimes threats emerge out of nowhere. They come from places we never expected. Yeah, and the most obscure, austere places. And the challenges they may not be going away anytime soon. And that's something to take note of for anybody who's considering jumping into the industry. There's a lot of pieces that go into this. Education, like Meredith said. Something that really stood out to me, though, is you both shared that one of your challenges is managing growth. Managing your growth. I'm going to step out on a limb and say that means revenue and sales. And unless I'm wrong, I'm thinking that's what we're referring to. And consider all that, guys. Consider. I apologize. I can't help the train out there, but maybe we'll just sing a little song until the train goes. Speaking of challenges from unknown places, that was a wicked long train. I just have probably one final question, and that is that this is a really, really big macro question, and answer it the way you see fit. The future of cannabis, CBD, of hemp in the state of Texas. In the state, not just San Antonio, but in the state of Texas. Where do you see it?
I see it eventually, the stigma going away over cannabis. I feel that once we educate Texans on the plant and its uses, or how it has healing properties, or as a business, how we can improve our economies, I think people will be a lot less afraid of what they don't know. And so that's what we're hoping to do with the magazine, is to just kind of destigmatize the whole industry and educate people. And I think that, Texans are smart. We're going to get it, and we're going to move forward with it.
Let's see, where do I see this going? I'm going to keep it short. I think Texas has the opportunity to be the #1 leading state in the nation. I really do, with the amount of farming and land that we have here, and it being prime real estate for growth. I see us being leaders in the industry to support businesses like Emjayze, like with Amos, being producers of hemp plastics and hemp papers and hemp fiber for building houses, and you name it. For me, wrapping up, and thank you, Rick, for having us out here to do this. If any of you guys are questioning, what is my role, what can I do, how can I be in this industry, I have said this time and time again, and I will always say it, I'll continue to say it, is what are you passionate about? What do you do right now? And how can you bring cannabis into the sphere of what you do? For me, we started because we manufactured food. We manufactured caramels, and all I had to do was add one ingredient. I ventured to say that if each of you thought about what you do right now and you added that one ingredient, you could have a whole new platform.
So I agree a lot with what Matt just said. Where I see the Texas cannabis industry going is I think it's going to be explosive, and it's going to be massive. And I firmly believe what Matt said, that we could be the #1 producer and processor of cannabis material here in Texas. We are a big business state, or a big farming state. So it just makes sense that once the political side gets figured out, that we're going to really start to go full throttle into this as entrepreneurs, as small businesses as well as big businesses. I think are going to be making that shift and really driving Texas as a leader in this. I really see Texas getting big into the processing of the raw materials of hemp and cannabis, whether that's through flower and what we do, or whether that's through extraction and producing CBD isolates for other CBD products, but more so even on the textile side of things, where Texas is a major provider of cotton to the country, and I can see a lot of farmers wanting to make the shift to growing hemp textiles for different applications, and then also raw materials for building materials with hempcrete, and then also the raw materials, the fibers needed to create hemp plastics and the other uses of the plant. So I really think Texas is going to be a major player in the industrial side of the plant and in the cannabis world.
Love it, guys. So as we begin to wrap up, I want to put a cherry on top of all that, and I'm going to throw my 2 cents in, because we're here in San Antonio, and this is Military City, USA. A huge military presence. In fact, one of the largest military installations, SAMC, in the entire world. And as a veteran and a former Army nurse, I got to say that there's leverage in that. There's leverage in helping our vets. So while there's tremendous movement on the business side of the industry, without a doubt, you've seen it for yourself now. This is just a sampling of what's going on in San Antonio right now. But beyond that, guys, is we can point to a lot of things. When the train rolled by, we were talking real briefly about what's going on in Austin right now, and the political scene. But it's beyond that. We've talked about what's going on in the merchant processing, but it's beyond that. We've talked about, even touched on marketing challenges. It's beyond that. What this is about, guys, this is a human issue. Those things are important, don't get me wrong, but uniting as people, as believers, as consumers, as entrepreneurs, uniting as humans is what it'll destroy all those things. And to the point of what was brought up in the crowd a while ago is that's it. But it's beyond legislation. It's beyond merchants. It's beyond the big companies. This is about us. And I've stated this before, and I'll state it again. San Antonio is the epicenter of some massive shifts in the entire industry. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. San Antonio is the epicenter. This magazine, if you've never heard of Sensi, guys, you should have. It's one of the largest cannabis culture lifestyle magazines in the country. They chose San Antonio to launch. Not Austin, not Dallas, not Houston, right here. And it's being led by some very strong women. Proud to know them. But as we wrap up, guys, I'm going to pass this down for one final thing real quick. Tell us where we can find you, whether it's an Instagram. Tell the people where we can find you and learn more about you and your business.
Well, we are just getting started, but Sensi Magazine is going strong in other markets in the country. So at sensimag.com, you can find every single issue that's being published right now in all of the markets across the U.S. You can read the entire magazines. You can see what they're doing in Denver. You can see what they're doing in the Emerald Triangle in Northern California. We're in Boston. We're going to be launching in Seattle, in Portland, in Pittsburgh, all over the country this year, and San Antonio. So Roxanne and I are going a little rogue with some of our marketing, and we do have sensisa.com, where you can send people who might want to get involved with us to learn a little bit more about the magazine, what we're trying to do, and how we're going to launch. The magazine will eventually be in over 400 distribution points around the city, coffee shops, doctors' offices, places where anybody can just pick it up and learn more. We're going to be printing about 10,000 a month to start, and we're going to ramp that up as we grow. So at sensimag.com or sensisa.com, you can find out a lot more information about us.
The best place to find us is right now is social media, and in like almost every CBD shop in San Antonio. So find us at Flora Fortitude on Instagram and on Facebook. You can also visit our website, florafortitude.com. Go and visit these CBD shops that are supporting our business. Go to Alamo Botanicals. Right after this, I'm about to go to a new shop that is opening this weekend, Pharmacy Botanicals. So get out there, go and learn about all these other great businesses that are opening up, all these shops that are opening. You can find a lot about our products there. Would love to chat with you guys more afterwards if you have any questions.
Same as Matt, best place to keep in touch with us and to find us is going to be on social media. So you can follow us on Instagram at Emjayze Hemp, spelled Emjayze. That's also the same name we have on Twitter and Snapchat and Facebook. We post a lot of content there. You can also visit our website at emjayze.com. We're in around 17 stores around San Antonio, so you can either call ahead and see if they have our product or not. We're getting into more every week. And yeah, I think that's probably the best places to follow us. Of course, tomorrow we'll be here. All of us will be here set up, so you can come out and see a little bit more about what we do.
Cool, guys. As we begin to wrap this up, I have to thank these people. Have to thank Essex Modern City for doing this, for being a part of this flagship moment. Jalen Productions, super cool group, guys. They're helping stage all this as well. John, he's running around here. His group is out of LA, California, and they're the ones who are they're busting a bead to get all these things actually set up today. Creo, they're based right here. I think the only office that's actually based here at Essex. And I got to thank Night Runner Studios. They're the ones who they're recording this, and we will be releasing this on our podcast, which is Weed to Know Basis. And Weed to Know Basis, it's an educational platform. We're on 9 different stations, including YouTube, WeedTube. If you haven't been following, WeedTube exists now. The mantra about what we're doing, all of us, if you don't mind, I'll just state this, is not if you can't beat them, join them. It's if you can't join them, beat them. And that's really what the essence of this is, guys, is we're tactfully, responsibly, ethically moving the industry forward. And I love, it was brought up to me a long time ago, but if you can't join them, beat them. And that's really what we're doing. And then, as Amos said, guys, there will be a cannabis corner, cannabis alley, hashtag what you will. We're actually going to be right up here in the main area. And there's going to be several other companies represented from the city of San Antonio here. We'll be here the entire day, 12 hours, for Essex Festival tomorrow. And got to thank Essex Festival, first year, 2019. As of now, they'll be back next year, and we will too, with a much bigger cannabis presence in San Antonio. And then finally, thank you guys. Thank you, Amos, Matt, Meredith. Thank you for showing up. And I mean that in the literal and figurative sense, for showing up for the city, for the industry, for your businesses, and for the folks who are here. Thank you guys for being here as well. Have an awesome rest of the day, and we'll be around for a little bit, just hanging out. Thanks, guys.